In 1987, the Northern Earth Mysteries Moot was held at the Lindisfarne Centre, a New Age centre in Newcastle-upon-Tyne. It was quite a powerful spot and is on a lay going to the east end of Durham Cathedral. It was beautifully laid out with a large meeting room where the moot was held, a healing room and sanctuary in the upper floor, which was similar to design and feeling to the upper room at Chalice Well, Glastonbury. The courtyard originally held a chapel and was known as New Chapel Churchyard. Unfortunately, I can find nothing about it on the web today, and so I assume it is closed. It was originally on the line of Hadrian's Wall, and remains of a previously undiscovered mile castle were found here. After Philip Heselton had introduced the moot, Anthony Thorburn, a psychiatrist by profession and representing the Northumbria Seekers, spoke on the founding of the centre. Philip then gave his introduction to Terrestrial Zodiacs, the theme of the moot. He said that to archaeologists, the subject was the lunatic fringe of the lunatic fringe. But the idea goes back a long way, for Ptolemy divided the world into 12 zodiacal segments. But the idea had not been developed till the 1920s, when Katharine Maltwood discovered the Glastonbury Zodiac. He then spoke briefly on her life and discoveries. One approach to zodiac research is the logical one, he said, as with Mary Cain, who drew up a series of zodiac rules. But most take the geomorphological approach, looking at the shapes of the land. There is a similarity but also much diversity between them. If they exist, what is their function? If they are a natural phenomena, they may not be for anything. What seems certain is that it is the intuition which takes priority, influenced by a particular genius loci. Nigel Pennick was the next speaker, and he began by giving an outline of the climate of opinion at the time of Katharine Maltwood, who had suggested the landscape was planned into a planisphere, not a zodiac, and charted aerial photographs. In the Renaissance of Earth Mysteries in the 60s, Mary Cain wrote articles on the Glastonbury giants, altering some of the figures. In the 70s it burgeoned into the Institute for Geomantic Research. When Mrs. Maltwood died, she left £4,002 to the Royal Society of Arts for Zodiac Research, but phrased the bequest for antiquarian research in Somerset. The RSA sat on the money until a committee headed by Glyn Daniel was formed, and by 1970 the cash was trickling out to conventional archaeology. Efforts to get some of it for zodiac research were unsuccessful.
Mrs. Maltwood said that this zodiac circle is the origin of the mystique, the legends and the magic of Glastonbury, and somehow manages to enfold within itself all of Glastonbury's main legends, such as that of Gwyn ap Neath. Certain of the zodiac figures differ from those with which we're now familiar, but these are really changes of interpretation rather than form, such as the Aquarius Bird, which is indeed also a water carrier, since Chalice Well springs from its beak.
In the Glastonbury Zodiac, many of the key features are modern, as with the dam forming the trunk of the Sussex elephant, where a mammoth's tusk was found. A roundabout forming a nostril of the elephant was built after the figure was plotted. Mrs. Maltwood believed the shapes were artefacts of Phoenician tin traders, but evidence like the above shows them to be likely to be in a constant state of formation. There is not much published on zodiacs now, however, their heyday was the late 70s. After the coffee break there were 4 short talks. First, David Thompson gave a progress report on research into a site on the Simonside Hills, 25 miles north of Newcastle. He found one large stone standing on a foundation, with a small hole apparently drilled right through it. A 5-foot-6-inch long passage on the line of the midsummer sunset and midwinter sunrise. The midwinter sunrise seen through this hole. In one direction there was a stone made like a seat, 70 feet away and aligned to let the observer see through the hole. On the other side of the stone was another apparently made as a chin rest, also aligned exactly on the hole. A view from the hill above showed a rough circle of stones. There was also an equinoctial alignment with the edge of the stone. Rob Wilson then spoke of the headstone, a very impressive rock in the shape of a head 6 miles from the centre of Sheffield. There is another feature lower down which could be a penis or a baby. Its original names were Stump John and the Cock Crowing Stone, and it has a legend of turning when it hears the cock crow. I spoke next on the World Zodiac, which was either the largest terrestrial zodiac or the disproof of them all. Its existence was first suspected by a Sagittarius-like formation of the coast of Siberia. Further figures were found afterwards, but Libra and Cancer appear to be missing. One of the best figures is that of Taurus the Bull, formed by the Canadian and American Rocky Mountains, with the Big Horn Mountains forming a horn. Although the name is apparently from the big horn sheep in the area, the figure seems to be definitely that of a bull's head. Scorpio is an immense figure made of India, Indochina and the Himalayas, with a tail reaching to the spot on the Altai Mountains where Mongolia, China and Russia meet.
The Hindus talk about the same place, called Mount Meru. The Lamas of Tibet call it Shambhala. The place can be pinned down within a few miles. It's in the Altai Mountains, where Russia, China and Mongolia converge, near Mount Belukha. The Lamas earlier this century believed that Shambhala was still live. Apparently the Tunguska object came from the direction of the Altai Mountains in 1908, and in the 1920s Nicholas Roerich, who went in quest of Shambhala, saw what today would be called a UFO. Geoffrey Ash considers that he has established that there was a centre of wisdom there and that it is still active.
The great dog guarding the zodiac is Australia, which I've always thought resembled a dog's head with 2 ears. Derek Wilby Chalk then told us of the latest ideas on Rothbury and Simonside. Well Close Rothbury, where he lives, seems to be a special site enclosed by a semicircular fault. Landscape work seems to relate local hills to the chakra system, each one representing a body chakra. The chain of hills, which he called the Rothbury Dragon, could represent an earth energy source. After the meal, Anthony Thorburn spoke on the Cheviot zodiac. Cheviot seems to form an Earth Mother figure, with Hedgehope Hill forming the head, Cheviot the rump, and Coombe Fell the shoulder. The hill was seen to represent Virgo in the form of a corn dolly. Libra is a dove as at Glastonbury, but the scorpion is more like a serpent and seems to be biting the archer's testicles. Taurus is a complete bull, and the dog has a lake for a tongue. The Gemini figure seems to be a pair of copulating lovers, with an earthwork binding the woman to the man. He then briefly went into the Gypsy Switch, Gypsy route, and showed some important places on it were also zodiac sites. Hedgehope Hill and Cheviot. On the following day, some of us met at Well Close Rothbury, home of the Seminarium into Psyche, Architecture and Rural Knowledge. We were then taken to Beacon Hill, where we saw the hold stone mentioned in the talk, and the chin rest and chair stones. There was much excitement when a further hold stone was found, this time with the hole not completely through, as if the work was abandoned. Higher up the hill was an observation point with head hum, which I could detect above the wind noise and conversation. I had the impression that this was a kind of central control for the system. On the summit of the hill was a large cairn. This stone is still known as the Thompson stone, after David Thompson, who discovered it in 1987, mentioned in the megalithic portal. After our picnic lunch back at Well Close, Anthea Wilby Chalk took us to Callerley Hill. On a lay to Beacon Hill we had a very different sight. This was an entirely natural place. Indeed, there was a legend of a proposed castle build thwarted by supernatural agencies. It was the trees here that were so remarkable. There didn't seem to be one with a single trunk, and they didn't appear to have been coppiced. But they were not just doubles. One had 3 trunks, one dividing further up. Another had 3 normal trunks and 2 lovers, trunks spiralling round each other. And the largest had 6 trunks. One had a fallen trunk which had seemingly rooted from where it fell, forming 2 complete trees joined by a common branch. The life force here must be so amazingly high that trees don't die even when they fall. Above it all was the same middle C sound of the wind in the trees noticed elsewhere. The weekend was a stimulating and exciting one, combining theory with experience and giving everyone many insights into the mysteries of the landscape. When he heard that I was going on holiday in the area of the Pumpsaint Zodiac, near Lampeter in Wales, Philip Heselton sent me a large sheaf of photocopied information on it. I found that the Zodiac had been discovered as early as 1948 by a Lewis Edwards, who numbered among his other activities being a political agent for the Prime Minister Ramsay MacDonald. He believed that the circle he'd found was an actual temple, used for worship, and even isolated 2 hills near the centre that he identified as the inner and outer sanctuaries, one for initiates and the other for the people. On visiting the former, I found it to have a very uplifting atmosphere, and the field definitely seemed to have some kind of banking around it, though it wasn't marked on the map as an antiquity. The banking round the hill. The atmosphere was markedly different to the nearby Llywyn Wood, which had a feeling of decay about it, probably accentuated by the fallen trees, which may have been a result of the hurricane in 1987. Strangely, it was similar to that felt at Park Wood at the centre of the Somerset Zodiac many years ago. A lorry full of dogs, all whining piteously with no person in evidence, completed the picture. The wood is nonetheless quite interesting, as the name Llywyn is Welsh for grove, and although it's marked on the map as coniferous, there are several other species mixed in with them, which is suggestive of it having been a druidical grove. The outer sanctuary adjacent to Llywyn Wood. The Zodiac is similar to the Somerset one, but with some differences. Scorpio, for instance, is not represented by one figure, but by 3. A scorpion, a serpent and an eagle, supposedly symbolising death and the transcendence of the soul. There is a nearby pass called Bwlch Cefn Sarth. If Sarth is a corruption of Sarf, this would mean the pass at the back of the serpent. The hill forming the serpent is clearly visible from the road, as is the one forming Virgo on the other side. There seems to be some disagreement as to the nature of Aquarius. Edwards says it's a squirrel, whereas in John Michael's article it's said to be a phoenix. Either way, it's very difficult to find on the map, as is Leo. Many of the others are quite well defined though, particularly Pisces, which is formed by 2 woods which are clearly visible from the road to the north of the circle. Perhaps the most striking place in the Zodiac that we visited was the Carreg y Bucci, the Hobgoblin Stone. This is on an alignment which skirts the 2 sanctuaries and is coincident with a 2-mile stretch of the Sarn Helen to the north. Alfred Watkins mentions this road in connection with Helen, traditionally a daughter of King Cole, who he connects with the lay surveyors. The line skirts an ancient site to the north of that, as well as going through a few minor points. A somewhat better lay links it with 2 cairns in the nearby hilltop, one of which is visible from it, and 2 other well-spaced cairns several miles away, and some minor points. The site itself is very impressive, approached by a rather alarming road with a precipice at one side. It's a mound, visible from some distance, and on top is a very large slab of conglomerate stone. There is a hollow in one side which seems to be intended for some kind of offerings, and when I visited it, it had several pieces of pure quartz crystal apparently placed in it. Around in it is a scatter of other stones which Lewis Edwards felt could be the remains of a stone circle, and I tend to think this could be right. There are stories attached to the place of farmers turning a covetous eye on the stone, but who were discouraged by freak thunderstorms when they tried to remove it. The lay through the Hobgoblin Stone and the two cairns. Another alignment mentioned by Edwards, which turned out to be a very good lay, is the one which he felt was used to set the circle. As nearly as it can be ascertained, it passes through the centre of the circle. Edwards writes, "The alignment of cairns or tumuli on Mynydd Llanbicher to the south-west of the temple. On the 6-inch map, 4 cairns are marked here. There are only 3 on the 1-inch map. Except for the second from the north, they are in a straight line, and are known by the name Crugiau Edrid. Further to the south-west stands an isolated cairn, Crug y Biswai, which is on lower ground than Crugiau Edrid. A line drawn from Crug y Biswal through the centre of the line of cairns, Crugiau Edrid, points to the centre of the circle and is clearly the line of orientation. It passes near the eye of Taurus and therefore indicates that the temple was constructed soon after the commencement of the age of Taurus, which occurred about 4500 BC. This line passes through other points besides the one mentioned, however. It passes through a Motten settlement at Pencada, Crug y Biswal, Crugiau Edrid, a junction of tracks near Llwynwood at the centre of the circle, a church at Pont Rydfelen, and a standing stone a little further to the east, in addition to several hill peaks. It's clearly a most significant line. Unfortunately, our holiday had to be cut short because of a funeral, so what was found was severely limited. The scope for further work is clear. Lewis Edwards' map of the Temple of the Stars, 1947. Aquarius, squirrel. Pisces, 2 fishes. Aries, ram. Taurus, bull's head. Orion, man's head and arm. Leo, lion. Virgo, sheaf and body. Scorpio, serpent and eagle. Sagittarius, man on horse with a lance. Capricorn, unicorn. Our other holiday that year was in Yorkshire, staying in a cottage near Penistone Hill, Haworth. This hill was start of quite a good lay, which runs across the moors. It was previously used as a source of sandstone, until quarrying finally ceased in the late 1960s. It's littered with rock boulders, quarry spill and small ponds called Forth ponds. There is a very good visual stretch between 2 clumps not marked on the map. The line also seems to pass through a field gate here. Further south, it goes through a stone marked on the map as a rocking stone, though after a trudge across the moor in atrocious weather, my son and I could find no part of it that rocked, except a very small slab in the ground. Luddenden Church, further south, is in an attractive setting, but unfortunately locked. The lay passes through a number of minor points as well as Sutton-in-Craven Church to the north. Spot-marked summit at Pinnistone Hill, the multi-junction at Upper Marsh, the Rocking Stone, Sleepy Low, a modern cairn possibly overlaying an earlier one, Luddenden Church, and a multi-junction of tracks south of it.